If I could go back in time 10 years ago to when I first started doing ministry, I can't say that I would have changed anything in my life. The fact that I get to do what I love and to be able to share Christ with the lost, it's such a great thing that God would use me to impact somebody's life. It just makes me so grateful that God's made the path clear to me, that God has given me a way that I can do what I love, share Christ with the lost, and I feel satisfied at the end of the day knowing that I'm doing what God wants me to do. I've been able to live my dream for the last 10 years doing God's work. I wouldn't change a thing if I could, and there's no greater feeling than that. I grew up in a small town and I was a church boy, and I absolutely loved bike riding and skateboarding and all these extreme things. It wasn't until I was 17 years old though that I actually came to follow Christ, and everything changed in my life at that point.
I really wanted to grow, so I spent a lot of time at church. I got involved in the worship team, youth group ministry. I spent a lot of time in church and hanging out with Christians. But eventually, I felt called to reach out to all the people that would not normally set foot inside of a church. My mom gave me a DVD and it was called Living It, and it was made by the Plow organization. It was a Christian DVD with pro bikers, pro skateboarders. They were doing what they love, but they were using it for ministry. The Living It DVD, it was a seed that was planted in my life. When I saw that, it opened my eyes to the fact that you could use something like skateboarding and BMX to do ministry. It wasn't long after that I met this guy named Vic Murphy through the internet. I knew he was a pro bike rider. I looked up to him, and he was looking for guys to travel with him and do ministry. And that really interested me because I didn't really know how to share my faith, but that's what I was passionate about, and we got to ride our bikes.
I was in desperate need of riders. I met John Andrus online, and I remember calling him on the phone and saying, "Hey, we're gonna go out and preach the gospel." And he said, "Okay, I'm in, let's go." And I said, "Do you have any questions?" No.
I quit my job, I packed my bags.
We met in Charlotte, he flew in.
And I moved away from my hometown to start traveling with Vic Murphy and all these crazy guys.
And that was over 10 years ago. So we've been out preaching the gospel ever since.
As we were traveling, some of the events we were doing were with the Louis Plow Association. One of the first international trips I went on with Andrew Plow and Vic Murphy was to Egypt. I just remember driving away from the airport and looking next to me and seeing a brand new Mercedes on one side, and on the other side seeing an old barefoot lady on a donkey. And I knew I wasn't in America anymore. It impacted me because seeing Andrew Plow share the gospel with a culture that's so different from what I grew up in, and such a contrast in religion there in Egypt.
If you prayed that prayer, I want you right now to just stand where you are.
Seeing people come to Christ in a place like that, it really impacted me a lot. Before I started doing traveling ministry, I hated speaking in front of people. The last thing I wanted to do was to get on a microphone and say anything. God's really changed me in that I've seen these other people giving the gospel to the lost because of Andrew Plow and Vic and these other evangelists I've worked with. I've been given the boldness, and I feel equipped now to go and share the gospel.
Jesus, he died on the cross and he took that punishment on himself, and he was doing it for us.
It's encouraged me because even though I don't feel like I'm a great communicator, God's given me the boldness to give the message myself, and I've seen many people come to Christ. I've seen the lost responding to this simple message. I just see the fruit of the gospel and how God can use my mouth. It's easy to get worn out and to get discouraged because we don't always see the direct fruit of what's happening. But there's these moments when the gospel's being proclaimed and you look in the faces of people hearing the gospel, and you can just tell that they're engaging not just with the words being spoken from the microphone, but engaging with God. Seeing those people's faces when they hear about Jesus, that is what I live for. It's hard to even imagine not having Plow's support and not having their encouragement and their networking with the Next Generation Alliance. Because of them and their investment in guys like me, I've been able to be so much more effective with my ministry. It's humbling to me that God would let me live up my dream to be able to travel around sharing Christ with the lost. I think about that seed that was planted in the Living It DVD and how that seed has grown into 10 years of full-time ministry. I've been to over 30 countries. I'm doing an event that involves preaching Christ almost every week. That seed has grown, and now You know, there's so many opportunities how I can share Christ to the lost. I am so thankful to the Louis Plow Association because if it wasn't for their investment in other ministries, feeding into these guys like Vic Murphy and me that are out doing ministry, encouraging us and helping us to stay connected with people that are doing ministry, you know, I don't think we would have been able to accomplish even a half of the amount of ministry that we have. Because of Palau, we've been able to preach the gospel with tens of thousands of people more than we would have. You know, there's so many different paths in life we can take. One of the things I've always asked God for was, put me on the path that is the most effective for your kingdom. I think the path God put me on, working with Vic Murphy and the Louis Plow Association, has been the most effective use of my life. I don't know what it would have been like if I hadn't followed that path. What I do know is when I look at the last 10 years of doing ministry, I've seen God's effectiveness through me, I've seen Him grow me, and I've seen people come to Christ because of the good news that's been proclaimed by us working together as a team. Our ministry has been multiplied because of the Plow organization, and you know, I'm so thankful for that seed that was planted with Live in It, and I'm so thankful for the years to come with all the relationships I've made with people at Palau and the Next Generation Alliance. How many more people are going to hear about Jesus? How many more people are going to hear the good news of Jesus Christ because we're working together? Man, I'm thankful and I'm looking forward to the future.